Hi, I'm Kevin Jefferson, the People's Lender, NMLS number 1433853. And today we are going to have an open discussion on how to navigate in a shifting market, which is definitely a timely subject because they were just announced today that we are in a recession, as well as the Fed increased interest rates 3/4 points. I'm going to go around the room and introduce you to some of my colleagues. Go.
All right.
Aaron.
I'll start. Aaron Simmons, NMLS 239638, AaronSimmonsTeam.com. I'm with First Heritage Mortgage, a veteran of the mortgage business for the last 17 years. So excited to hear about this and excited to talk to our two great agents and investor extraordinaires we have here.
And introduce yourself, Jay.
I'm Jay Johnson. I'm a real estate broker here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I've been in the business myself now for about 20 years, and I'm just happy to be on the show. Appreciate the invite, Kevin.
Oh, no problem, my friend.
And I'm Dione Sanford. I am a real estate agent in Georgia. I'm also a coach and a mentor, a business owner of KJ Jarrell Real Estate Solutions, where we do real estate investment strategies.
Awesome. And I guess I need to say I'm the people's lender. I'm with Summit Funding. And I'm looking forward to this conversation because I think it's timely and I'd like to see the insight of other professionals who do this on a daily basis. So let's start with the lady. Dionne, what are you seeing in this current real estate market?
Well, I'll talk about the market that I'm familiar with, right? So in Georgia, I'm seeing a little bit of a slowdown when it comes to sellers being able to put properties on the market and the market going. I mean, the properties going off like soon as they hit like 0 days on the market, they even got 15 offers in, and now it's kind of slowing down. So you're seeing where they're still getting offers on these properties, but they may be on the market for 5 days or so. They're not getting 10, 20, 30 offers on the property. People are not building over, are bidding over the asking price like they used to, and they're starting to ask for for closing costs. And then now you're seeing where a lot of the builders are, where they didn't have any inventory now, where they wouldn't offering incentives. They have inventory, and now they're offering incentives, and now they're even giving agent bonuses. So that just shows you a little bit how the market in Georgia is actually shifting some.
And I can jump in just to, I guess, add to what you just said. We're located about an hour south of DC, hour north of Richmond, just to give you an idea where we are in Virginia. And we're pretty much seeing the same thing. So we seeing price cuts right now. We're seeing the days on the market extend. And we are getting some closing costs paid. And it's funny that you talked about the builders, because I think last week we had 3 different builders bring us donuts and cookies and candy. So they need us right now. So we're seeing things slow down a little bit as well. So I think that's across the board.
Yeah, I can look, Jay. No, we've been in the office. I ain't seen a donut in years.
Yeah, they want your business now. We in last year we were trying to do home buyers tours, and some of the builders was like, okay, well, you can come still do it, but we don't have any inventory. Someone was like, well, what we need you guys for? We don't need that. And now they're like, please hurry up, y'all come. They even got now where I heard that they have their on-site agents to do marketing, digital marketing now. They're marketing for business because they want to get people to come in. So that shows you a lot that they can see that is changing. And then a lot of the subdivisions here where they were going to start building, you can see that they kind of push back on that. They're not moving forward on some of these sites that they were supposed to build on. So now everybody's like, okay, what do we need to do? We need to get rid of what we have now before we even attempt to open up anything else. And so that just, it just shows a lot. I mean, they're going to need on the other side where you had all the sellers getting it. Now the buyers can ease back in there now, and still get it. So we just try to make sure we educate our buyers like, hey, I know the rates are going up, but it's still a good time to buy because everything is better than renting for me, and the education, the benefits of homeownership is what we teach people. And in reality, it's still a good time to be able to get yourself out there and become a homeowner.
Definitely. So I did a quick, I pulled some numbers just based on our stats. And so from last year, to this year, we still seen a price increase of about 15%, right? So the average sales price is right around 475. The units sold dropped about 30%. So it's less business being done. We're still seeing the prices increase, but there's less transactions closing. So that tells me it's going to be a lot of agents hurt in this shift that we're going through right now. So the next year or two, we may start to see some people get out of the business unless they can adapt, unless they can lean in and then work with their past clients, friends, and family. It's going to be a shift. You know, the last couple of years, everybody got their real estate license because homes was just selling and going quickly. But now it's about providing a service. And so I think just with the less transactions being done, we're going to start to see some agents get out of the business as well. But as far as the prices, again, prices definitely went up. So from last year to this year, we still seen the price increase. So it's definitely a good time to buy, like you said. As compared to renting, when you're making that payment every month, when you own the home, it's going towards paying your mortgage down. You're creating equity. When you're renting, you have somewhere to live, but that money is paying down the landlord's mortgage.
So, Kev, you mind if I ask both of these agents a question? I actually want you guys to both take a stab at this. So, what kind of answer do you give to the pushback from what Jay just mentioned about? Because everybody's using, I like to call it the big words. Like if you go on YouTube, it's either going to crash, it's going to fall, it's going to stumble. It's the worst of the worst is going to happen. So, a lot of real estate agents, real estate investors are out here promoting, hey, wait for this thing to crash 900,000%, because those are the numbers they use. It's just this huge percentage, and then get into real estate now. What if a buyer approaches either one of you, and you guys can take a stab at this and say, hey, Jay, I'm thinking about, I want to wait maybe a few minutes in order to purchase my property. What kind of pushback or what kind of answer would you, maybe a year or two to wait to purchase, what kind of pushback would you give to them?
Well, I'm going to give them a story. I'm going to say I talked to a buyer around 2019, and we had the same conversation. You know, the market was crazy. There was a lot of people in the market. People were paying more than what the home was worth. Let's just wait. He wanted to wait. In 2020, that same property went up by about 18%. So by him waiting, it cost him 18% increase. And from 2020 to 2021, we've seen another increase. So I say if you can afford this mortgage and you're comfortable, then it's definitely a good time to purchase. They say marry the home, date the rate, right? So rates are going to go up and down. But if you're comfortable where you are, I would say take that step and buy the home, purchase it. And then when rates come back down, you can refinance if that's the situation. But again, I'm always asking what's important to you about buying a home, right? And so it's going to be, we might want to move up. We might need something smaller. We may need the backyard. But whatever it is, what's important about this home? If you like this home, if you love this home, let's purchase it. And again, over time, you're going to pay that mortgage down. So you create an equity. Whether the market's going up and down over a long period of time, this is a long investment. Over that long period of time, you're going to gain equity. So the market may shift up and down, but if this is a home that you're in, you're going to see that gain over time.
So Aaron, when you got in 17 years ago, what did interest rates look like?
I actually got in, and interest rates we were in the middle of the first refi boom. So and Jay might remember this. It was like, I think interest rates went from like 6 to like 4 or something like that. And so rates were at that time were pretty good, but even people were purchasing real estate at 6%. People were buying real estate at 7%. You know, I think all of us know my parents bought their second house in, upstate New York, and it was a great deal for $135,000 at 17% a month. And my dad had A credit. So people are always purchasing real estate. I think what Jay hit on was perfect, is that what does the property mean for you? And that's the job that I try to be as an advisor for my clients. And I want Dionne to talk about that a little bit, is that it's got to be a long-term play. Because I think one of the things that people got spoiled off of just being on the lending side was speculation. It was easy to purchase a property in 17, 18, and you look like Nostradamus in 2020 and 2021 because you turned around and sold it for, 100 or 200,000 more. But you talk to people in different markets, they've been in houses 10, 15 years, they paid down the principal, and they sold at what we call a normal market rate, and they're happy. So I think just the consumer today, seeing what happened over the last 24 to 36 months, has kind of given them the expectation that this is a normal market, and that 30 to 40% gains are what should be expected when I'm only in my house for 3 or 4 years. All of us as real estate professionals know that is not normal in any market. I mean, heck, the stock market doesn't even do that. But the speculation and the Fed's, manipulating interest rate and quantitative easing and all these things, people kind of just forget that real quick. So I just wanted to make sure that we had Dionne hit on that, the speculation as well, and what she started to see from some of her buyers in this market.
Right. So for me, I always try to make sure that I'm educating people when I'm talking to them for the very first time. And so, like you just hit on, this market is totally different, right? This is a market that a lot of us have never experienced before the last couple of years. And so now that I get people and they ask me, is this a good time for them to buy in the market or even sell in the market too? I tell people, and from a buyer's point of view, my conversation is like this. One thing about real estate is it's never going anywhere. Everybody has to have a place to stay. So whether you're renting or you're buying, you're going to pay somebody. So number one, if we're talking about our family and most, because a lot of people that I deal with, you'd be surprised, a lot of them have never had members of their family to even have or even thought about owning a home. So for me, it's so very important that I educate them on that. And so what I do is I tell them, I say, understand the people that are cashing in on here, they're cashing in on what we call their equity into the property, right? But when you're paying into your home, it's almost like a savings account. I tell people, just look at it like this. If you're renting, you're paying into somebody else's savings account. Right? No matter what it is, the rental rates are not going down either. The rental rates are really ridiculous. So you're going to pay into somebody's retirement or whatever. You're going to pay for their home or, either decide to pay for your own home. So I sit down with them and we kind of go over that scenario, what that looks like. Now, think about this. And this is my whole spiel. I say, how much do you pay in rent? And they'll say $1,200. I say, okay, we're going to calculate this by 12 months, right? And then, so now, how long have you been renting for? Oh, I've been renting for 3 to 5 years. Okay, so now we're going to calculate that number by 3 to 5 years. So now you're at about $48,000, $50. That $50,000, I say, and you hadn't even thought about it. You haven't thought about it because you have to have somewhere to stay. So at this point, you got to decide, who are you willing to invest in? And that has nothing to do with the market, whether it's going to go up or down, because we know that that's going to happen. That's what it does. It goes up, it comes back down. It goes up, it comes back down. But who are you willing to invest in? Are you willing to invest in your family? Are you willing to invest in somebody else's family? And that's what it all boils down to at the end of the day. You have to invest in something, because unless you're going to sleep on the street somewhere, you're going to invest in somebody, right? So you might as well invest in yourself. And then in addition to that, I show people how to, okay, let's talk about, even though the interest rates are where they are right now, let me show you how to cut that in half. We're going to show you how you're going to pay more than one payment, and we're going to apply those payments towards your principal. We're going to knock that 30-year down to 15. You're not even going to pay all of this on this report that they give you, right? So it's all about an education thing. And if they don't know and people don't explain it to them, then again, what do? Knowledge is very powerful. And people just don't know by lack of knowledge. They just think, well, you know what? I'm not going to buy, my family nearby. Why do I even have somebody that say that to me before? Why would I buy it? And why would I buy a house? It doesn't make any sense for me to buy a house. And to me, that just floored me, because I'm like, man, there was people that died for us to be able to buy houses. Are you serious? That's right. Number one, And so the challenges of the percentage of, and I don't want to really throw race in there, but let's just say African Americans are very low when we're talking about home ownership.
Absolutely.
So why do you think that it's important for other people to buy homes and not us? So we just have to really have those conversations with our clients. And really, if you really know what you're talking about, when you sit down, it's almost a no-brainer. The biggest problem that I have with people, and it's not that they don't want to buy right now, even though the market is going up, the rates are going up. It's not that they don't want to buy, it's because they can't. They don't have credit. The credit is jacked up. They don't have money, So I don't think that, honestly, even when the market went down, I still have people to buy, right? It didn't matter what price point. People gonna always want to buy. It doesn't matter. When I bought my first house, I think I had a 9% rate. I didn't care. I wanted to buy a house. You know, my credit was jacked. I didn't know, I just wanted to be in the house, you know what I'm saying? So I did what I had to do to buy and get to house. People do it all the time. They buy purses that don't cost worth nothing. They buy cars that ain't, so you are going to invest what's important to you, but they have to learn what the importance is and why becoming a homeowner is important. So
And I
that's
think, you said it. No, you said it, but you said it. People have to live somewhere, right? Whether they're
right.
going to rent or they're going to own their home. And right now, in today's market, the rental rates are up, and so it's just as hard to rent a home as it is to buy, anyways. Period. So if you can rent a home, you can actually buy a home. And you're going to have to put down that first month's rent security deposit. As a first-time buyer, there's no money down loans, 100% financing. And right now in this market, we can get closing costs paid. So it makes sense to buy a home as compared to renting every day. Right now, it may be some situations if you're moving into another location. If we're not from around here, we don't know where we want to stay. We might want to rent for a year, fill out the area, or we know we're going to relocate because we're military. It might be certain situations where it makes sense to rent. But 9 times out of 10, I say it's better to buy than it is to rent, period. I know the stigma in the room, right? Everyone's saying the market's going to crash. What's going to happen? And I think a lot of us was around that 06, 07 time frame. And we felt the crash. We seen houses go from 500,000 to 250,000. So we've seen the drop in this area. And that's what a lot of people are thinking right now. But it's not the same market as it was back then. So back then, I was actually doing loans, Aaron. We talked about it. And they had the no income, no assets, right? You didn't have to show you had a job. You had to have a credit score, probably around a 580 credit score. You can get a loan, 100% loan, no money down. And so there's a lot of people that just took houses and then let them go, couldn't afford it. And we seen the crash. So I think we're in a whole different economic state as well. So it's not the same as it was around that time. So I don't feel like we're gonna have that crash that everybody is waiting for. We may see it stabilize. We may see things level out a little bit. We might not get that 15% increase, but if we get 4%, that's still a good market, right? And that's how I see it.
I agree completely. I just don't think it's going to bottom down like people are waiting for it to do so. And it is stabilizing. And I'm actually happy that it is, to be honest with you. I'm glad that it's stabilizing because it to me, the way that the market was set up, it just didn't help a lot of people that was trying. It only helped people that came in with money. And if you don't have the 20, 30,000 to put over or however much it is, then you're losing, all the time. So I'm glad that it's kind of stabilizing a little bit to help people that wasn't able to have a chance to get a chance in order to get into a home. So I tell you, I'm just I'm really passionate about home ownership. So for me, I'm gonna always push it. That's just gonna be, I'm always gonna push it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with renting, don't get me wrong, but that's not where you're supposed to stay. It's a start. We all start somewhere. I rented. So many people rented before. You're starting, but that shouldn't be your ultimate goal. It should be, what can I do? And I just believe in I believe real estate is just one of the main ways to build wealth and truly build wealth. For people who took advantage of this market, they've probably never seen $100,000 before in their life, had that much money in their whole lifetime, and so that just shows that there is a way to truly build the money that you're trying to build. And you're just doing something that you wouldn't normally do anyway, paying your mortgage. You have to have somewhere to stay. So that's just the benefit to me. That's the caveat of being in the house. Hey, I'm sitting on some money.
So what I tell people is when you're talking about a crash, do you really want it? Because that means something's wrong with the economy. So you may not have a job if the market crashes, because it affects so many people. It doesn't just affect me, Aaron, Jay, and Dion. It affects the people that work at Lowe's, Home Depot. It affects the plumbers, the electricians, and then all of their family members. So it affects even down to convenience stores. Because if you don't have contractors gassing up and getting snacks in between, like, it affects so many more people, right? So you're praying for a crash, which you may lose your job, or if the market crashes, lending tightens up, and then you have to rent. But guess what doesn't change in the crash? Rent prices. They don't change in the crash. So you're praying for the downfall, but you don't know if you can afford a house then. And then, like I think it was Dion said, 3-4 years down the road, you're looking, you done paid that landlord 60-70 grand. And then you look back like that could have been your down payment. Or if you're an entrepreneur, that could have been a way to help you not have to try to write off so much, because you could write off interest, from the interest that you pay on your mortgage. And then, so they're talking, okay, interest rates are too high. You got credit cards and cars with 20% interest and you're in them. So why not buy a house that's an appreciating asset that's going to give you wealth and generational wealth? And Aaron tells me all the time, we got to teach these people how to think long term, because it's not an instant ATM after 2 years. We're looking at a 10-year investment at least for your house. So like I was talking to an agent today, and I asked her how things were going for her, and she was like, just getting buyers off the fence. I said, you understand that we're competing against CBS, NBC, ABC. They're spewing out so much about the housing market because they have a larger platform than us, but they're not digging into the nitty gritty. They may talk about the rent, and then another segment talk about home prices, and another segment talk about interest rate, but that is nationwide and it's not for your situation. Like if you can afford to buy a house and you're paying $2,100 in rent, which is the average rent in Atlanta now, you might as well buy. It makes no sense to rent unless you're in a situation like Jay said, you're trying to get to learn the area. But then after that, you should have a plan to be able to transition into housing, because that's where the wealth is. Why do you think these hedge funds are paying overpriced? Some of the hedge funds that bought properties from me back in 2012 still have those properties when they could have made a bag this last 2 years. But when I talked to the hedge fund manager, he said, we don't plan on selling. This was in 2012.
Right. And there was
He
a
told
heavy
me they don't plan on selling.
Right.
So like we've got to, us as real estate individuals, we have to continue to educate our buyers and let them know this is going to be the decision for your family. Like you have to make an educated decision and get the car later. The car is not important.
Yeah, I just
want
want
to get the house.
Yeah, I just want to add something to what Kevin just mentioned, because I think everybody we're all on the same page. But one thing that I try to do is talking to clients that when you're purchasing a property, long-term vision, number one, as an advisor, but number two, this is the first of your portfolio. And I think if clients start to look at it that way, that this is not going to be forever, but it can be a 7 to 10 or 20 or 30-year play. This is probably not going to be your first property, but if bought right, if purchased properly with the right program, with the right sort of mentality and the right sort of game plan, in 7 to 10 years, when you're time to relocate, it becomes a perfect rental. It becomes a perfect long-term property for you and your family. It could be a multifamily. And the one thing that we have to talk to people about is that, and this is something that I really, really try to push, is that sometimes the benefits of real estate, you will not see them. People that you don't know will get those benefits. So it can be your grandkids, it could be your nieces, your nephews. It could be people that you don't know, and that's long term. And that's that's a really, really long term. I know we always talk about, and we hear that, don't sell grandmama's house. Like literally, my mom sold my grandmother's home, and when I looked at what I could have bought it for, and what I could have cash flowed it for, I'm sitting there saying, why wasn't I in that deal? And I think each and every one of us, if we went around this, we know a situation in our own personal families to where that situation occurred. If somebody would have reached out to one of us as real estate professionals, we probably would have kept the property, rented it out, or been able to do something to where we can leverage it for our families. And I think the small vision of this is just my single family home. If we can just help our clients just adjust it, as this is a long-term part of our real estate portfolio, learn how to talk to an attorney to put it in a trust, learn how to talk to your family about the power of long-term real estate. It's very, very helpful. But the short term, and I'm just going to go back to it, the short-term speculation thinking is what always gets people in trouble. I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube just about speculation. You have people buying Rolexes last year for like 5,000 and turning around selling them for 20 grand last year. Now today, that's not happening anymore because the economy is changing. The cost of a dollar is a little bit more. And guess what those wealthy people no longer want to do? We're not parking our money in luxury watches anymore. We're trying to find different ways because those items aren't appreciating like what? Like real estate. And so I think this is an important discussion. I just think it's fantastic to have real estate professionals. I do want to switch it over to Jay a little bit, and just because he and I are always talking, but from an investor standpoint, because one of the things he and I were just talking about the other day is that we have buyers saying they don't want to buy, but Jay is always talking to investors that are looking for deals, which is very weird to me. You know what I'm saying? So I want Jay to just talk about some of the things he's seeing on the investor standpoint, whether it be long-term rentals or properties flipping in that local Fredericksburg, DC market.
Well, no, I think you hit it. We all said it, right? It's always better to buy as compared to rent because you're either going to be the owner or the landlord. Somebody is going to pay your mortgage down or you're going to own it yourself and gain that equity. So we definitely have investors always looking to buy for that long-term play, just to buy and hold. So we're going to get this home. Our payments might be $2,000 a month, but the rent is going to be like $2,500-$2,800 a month. And that's just long-term. And as you continue to hold that property, you're paying it down and you're gaining the equity. So as far as flipping, we didn't see it's still deals out here, right? Distressed sellers, death, divorce, disability. You have distressed sellers, and they're letting those homes go pennies on the dollar. Some of the times they need work, so you have to put some sweat equity into it. You have to put in maybe a new roof or new carpet, new paint. You have to fix it up, but you can create equity in that property by getting the distressed sales. And that's always around as well. So it's a lot of investors looking to buy homes, fix them up, and sell them. And what I think, and what I'm starting to see now, we're going to start to see more foreclosures hit. So we never talked about like the forbearance, right? We never even talked about COVID yet, right, y'all? So COVID was just its own thing that happened these last couple of years. I don't know what to call it. It's its own thing, right? It's just
something we never saw.
Yeah,
something we never saw. Yeah,
right. We never saw it before. And that drove prices up. Like we were scared. First, nobody wanted to go outside. But as far as the real estate market, we seen prices skyrocket. Like it just shot up. And that's supply and demand. So we had low supply and we had a high demand, right? And so that just shot the prices up. So right now we're starting to see that shift. Well, let me go back. During COVID, people couldn't, it was serious, right? People lost their jobs, people couldn't work. And so we had forbearances. They didn't have to make payments for a couple of years. In July, those payments are now becoming due. And so, or June, I believe it was. And so now we're starting to see a lot more foreclosures hit. So some banks may have said, we'll put this on the end of your mortgage. We'll work out a repayment structure with you, do a loan mod. And now some banks are saying we need all these payments due. And there's a lot of people who may still be out of work or just can't afford it. And so I'm starting to see more foreclosures hit the market. REOs are starting to get listed, more trustee sales. And so that's another way kind of if you're looking to invest in real estate, purchase the property, fix them up and sell them. So we're starting to see that as well. But just that supply and demand. And that goes along with the shift as well, right? We're starting to get more supply because of the foreclosures. More people are looking to sell because they realize it's shifting. Let me get as much as I can get for this home now before we miss out. So we're starting to see more sellers come out as well. So that's going to kind of slow down that 18% increase, but we're going to still see something. And I don't know, Aaron, I was just talking. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. No, it's perfectly, because I think what you also described is what you mentioned earlier, which is a shift in the transactions. And that also goes back to what you were talking about. And I can't tell you how many times having real estate, Kevin and I talk about this, talking to agents, save your money. I don't even know how else to save it. Save your money. Because, and this is just for the professionals, I know we're going to have consumers watching it, but one of the things is that a profitable business doesn't always mean it's at an all-time high. A profitable business is a profitable business. Right. So if you did 190, real estate transactions last year, but this year you did 150, that doesn't mean you don't have a profitable business. You have a reduction in transactions. Your business is profitable. The problem is getting everybody to have those 6 months to a year's worth of reserves. So if they have an adjustment in those transactions, not only can you survive for your family, but you have your savings, but you also have opportunities if there is an adjustment in the market to where you can purchase some of those reserves. I mean, you can purchase some of those properties. And for our clients as well, if you're currently renting and you're looking to purchase a property, saving money and having a down payment always helps in any real estate market. So no, you answered it perfectly. The forbearance and that stuff is real. And then I think that's what you and I were talking about the other day in the office is, are these people going to end up selling, or are these people going to try to end up staying in their properties? But they're going to have buyers. They're going to be people, especially if the prices are a little bit adjusted, they're going to be buyers available. So I'm curious to see what that market looks like again. Dionne, are you seeing foreclosures and things of that nature in your market, or how's the REO market right now in Georgia?
Well, no, we're not seeing a lot of foreclosures right now or REO properties coming on. Believe it or not, we actually reached out to we got a list of companies that had properties or usually list REOs and things, and there's only a few here or there that's coming back on.
Okay.
The only problem that I think that could possibly happen is because people did the forbearance. And they say, okay, the bank's gonna work with them, but if you ain't working and you ain't got no money when it comes down to what you gonna do? And that's the part that nobody explains to these people before they start doing these forbearance. It sounds good. Some people did it just because, right? Without really understanding that it may not work like you want it to work. I have a family member who did it, and I didn't know that they did it until just recently. And I'm like, dude, have you not been talking to these people? Like, what, what's going on? And so they hit me up today and said, I might need to sell the house. You need to see, so I got to help them to try to get out of this mess that they got themselves into. But again, that's about that lack of knowledge. People should understand that doing the forbearance really should have been truly for the people who needed it. And they had no other choice. If you were still working and still could pay your bills, then you should have been paying it. It's still going to be adding. You're still getting interest. Well, I don't know. Were they still paying interest? I think they were still accumulating interest, right, on the loans.
Yeah, you had to make. I believe that after the forbearance period, you had to make at least 6 months worth of payments, and then you'd be eligible to either refinance or things of that nature. But like Jay said, different strokes for different folks. Right. So some banks had guidelines to where that was it, and like Jay said, some banks, because you had people that think this was a forever forbearance. and if they haven't made those payments, I was there's another young lady that I watch, and she was also talking about one of the things that she's seeing, which is hoarders and people jumping into properties and not leaving and having issues in places like Detroit. I haven't seen a lot of that in this particular market, but there's going to be some. I think the whole thing is that there's opportunities for people to buy real estate different ways, whether or not you're seeing reductions in sales price, whether or not we're getting first-time home buyer programs, whether or not it's a renovation loan, as Jay was talking about, if you're an investor, whether or not you're seeing sellers. I've seen dramatic price drops. I've seen builders. I've been trying to develop a relationship with a builder in North Carolina, and they have a lender already. But last week, that lender had a flyer that said, we'll give you $3,500 in closing costs. This week, that lender's flyer says $10,000 in closing costs. And so that is a shift because builders are realizing, wait a minute, we're now competing with sellers putting their houses on the market, and we're building. How can we incentivize people to buy? So there's opportunities if it's a long-term play for people to purchase real estate. But I think Dionne just said something real good. I want to go back to Kevin. You have to be talking to trusted professional advisors. So whether it's Dionne, it's Jay, it's Kevin, it's myself, you need to reach out to people that are in tune with the market, are talking and discussing doing real estate every single day, so you can get unbiased education about your specific situation. What do I do with this property, Jay? Should I sell this? Here's how many months behind I am. Here's my equity. Is this going to be a long-term sale? Can I sell this thing quick? Talking to Dionne, okay, should I cash out? Talking to Kevin, should I refinance? There's so many different things and there's options, but the worst thing you can do, and Dionne said it, is not talk to your lender.
Right.
It's like not talking to the IRS. You already know what's going to happen.
I don't even know why they're so afraid. Why are you afraid? I mean, now you're afraid. You
want your money. Banks want your money.
Like, come on, this one you really need to be talking. So avoiding them is not going to stop you from getting put out. Okay.
Yeah. But that's important. A lot of people are probably like, ashamed, prideful, embarrassed. But you got to talk to somebody, like you said, somebody that's going to be here to help you. And that's why we in the business. That's why we doing this for the most part. So you got to be comfortable enough just to let someone come in and help. There's options out there available depending on whatever situation you're in, but you got to take that first step. Really, that's important because the lady I just talked to that we talked about, Aaron, she's facing foreclosure next month. And it just so happened I sent out letters and she responded to the letter. She doesn't want to move. She still wants to stay in her home, but that might not be the option. You might have to sell, take some of this equity, rent for a year, fix the credit, come back and buy. But now you're gonna get something for your home as compared to giving them back to the bank because she has about 100,000 worth of equity in the house. Don't let it go. You can sell it, take this money, and do something with it, and then be in better position in a year or so. So
talk to your professionals. Talk to your professionals.
Yeah.
And not your cousin who did it 10 years ago. That's who, I mean, we're competing against, let's be honest, we're competing against those people too.
Yeah.
Oh, you should wait a couple years because in 2008 the market crashed. The kid might not even knew. So like you're competing with them and hearing those conversations. And what people don't understand is, so they announced today that we're in a recession. We had 2 quarters of losses this year, right? So then you have the Fed that increased the rate by 0.75%. In the last 6 recessions, there's only been 2 housing crashes, 92 and 2008. 2008 caused the recession, and there was a ton of inventory. We're still 5 million houses short for the qualified buyers. You see what I'm saying? So, like, the biggest thing that we need to be doing is pushing home ownership, and something that Aaron said, I might be off. Aaron said we need to talk about trust and wills. Why is that important? So, in my hometown, I tried to get properties. The sellers were willing to sell, but there was no will, and there's so many people tied into the property where somebody passed away and then that ownership reverts to the kids that they're not going to get anything. So they say, if I'm not going to get anything, I'll just let it sit. So then what happens is the city and the county puts it up for sheriff sale at tax lien sales, and then they lose it anyway. There are 12, I want to say like 10 to 12 million vacant homes in America. A lot of them are probably tied up in that same probate situation. If we could get those things out of those situations, we create more housing. Because now an investor like myself, Aaron or Jay or Dionne could go in and fix it up and create housing for our people. But it's the fact that they're probably ashamed or nobody wants to pay for it. Or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them. Like the hard work and the sweat equity, I'll get rich another way. It doesn't matter to me. You know, I had a client, she called me. She said, well, I was listening to, and I'm going to say it, Grant Cardone, and he said you shouldn't buy a house. And I said, why would you listen to him? Well, he's a millionaire, you know, multimillionaire. And you're right. But that's how they got their head start on us. That's how they got their head start. Home ownership and land. They could sell the land. Yep, insurance policies. So all of those, and you listen to him, he'll tell you, don't put money in insurance. Don't put money in a 401k. Don't buy a house. It might have worked for him, but for us, that should be our start. They got a 400-year start on us, and it all started with housing. Why do you think they did redlining? You see what I'm saying? Like all of those things have to play a part. I get it, the investment piece. The cheapest way to get into an investment property is buying a 4-unit, living in 1 unit, rinse and repeat over and over. That's going to be the cheapest way. But if you don't own a house and you don't have a great job, where are you getting 20 to 30% to put down on investment property? So people, you know, educating them on that process helps. And I think that in this market, there's, like your Jay said and Aaron said, it's going to be a lot of opportunities. And we just have to be prepared. It's opportunity to be an investor, opportunity just to own a home, because some people are just going to be distressed and say the way with it, and I'm not talking to nobody. I'll just pack my bags and go. When they could have saved that 100 grand and brought something else. I'm sure Jay would, if a lady came 100 grand, came to you with 100 grand, and she wanted to own or finance something, you take it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we can work something
You
out.
see what I'm saying? That's another creative way to get into a house.
Right.
But people aren't thinking. They're not thinking that way.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So I got a question for you, Aaron.
Yeah.
What are you doing from the lender standpoint when your client says 5.5% is too high?
Take out the rate sheet from the last 50 years and also go through the payments. And the main thing is just that Dionne had mentioned it, but once you start running through payments, it's really not necessarily interest rate. It's the why on purchasing the property. And sometimes if you can get to the why, I talked to a client and 2 days ago, and he was like, I'm looking to purchase a property. I said, what's going on in your family? He said, Aaron, I got 4 kids in here and we in a 3-bedroom apartment. We need to purchase. Now is the time. My family's growing and we might have another little one coming on. And it's like, listen, we need more space. And as Jay mentioned, the rental prices now, if I'm looking for a 5-bedroom home in Spotsylvania County or in Culpeper County, you might be looking at $2,700 to $3,000 a month. And now when these clients are going on the market, looking at the inventory, 5.5% on 350, even FHA, you might be $2,200, $2,400 a month. It still makes sense, even in this market with those rates. So once you start to work through the why with the client and you kind of go through the payments and you kind of go through the long-term plan, the truth is if a client comes to me and says, Aaron, I want to buy this house now, and then in 2 years, I want to turn around and flip it, and I know that they're paying retail, that's not a strategy. That's speculation. Real estate is not speculative. This is not a casino, and this is not Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
This is a long-term play. So if you're looking to make a long-term play, this is going to work. Short-term is not going to work with you only putting 3.5% down or 5% down. But that goes back to the original point that I made in the beginning, the speculation aspect. They saw people do this in 2018 and 2019. I bought for 190 and it just went on the market. My neighbor down the street sold for 300. That's not you, because this is what markets do. So the crazy thing is that people don't do that with their 401k. They just put money into it. They lost 30%. They down 30% last year, but they forgot they was up 50% last year. So they forget that. So really it's just talking to the clients and having a plan, having a long-term plan, because everybody is individually different. We have some people that are coming into our market that might say this is a 5 to 7 year thing. You know what I would probably advise? If you know you're going to relocate in 7 years, you probably want to put at least 10% down, because even if we have a market shift, when we look at the amortization schedule, even if nothing happened, you got no appreciation, and even if the market dropped, you'd probably still be able to sell. Or if somebody's coming in for an FHA, you're putting as little as possible. Is this a long-term play for you and your family? Is this a 7 to 10 year play? We look at the amortization schedule. All right, let's just say everything bottomed out. Let's say if things dropped. Are you okay with that? Aaron, we need a place to live. Then buying is a good option for you. It's having realistic, honest conversations and telling a client this is not a good idea. That's why they pay us. That's why we're compensated as advisors. It's not to be yes people, but it's to advise them in the right circumstances. We have clients that come in and ask about home equity lines of credit all the time. That's a way for you to borrow against your house like a credit card. And the interest rates right now are still pretty good. But if you don't have a plan for that money, if you're not investing into another piece of real estate, but you just want to use it to go buy a car or to pay off some high interest rate credit cards that you're just going to go run up again, it is not a good idea. Are you doing improvements on the property? So all this, Kevin, just goes back into each of us as real estate professionals. Dig deep with your clients. They need advisors more than people that are just going to tell them to buy real estate. They really need us to be talking to them. What's your plan for your family, for yourself as an individual? And sometimes that answer might be a no now, but later on they might come to Jay or Dionne and be like, you know what? I see where the market is. I'm a little bit more educated. I'm prepared, because that's our job, is to create clients for life. And that's why we're professionals.
So D, have you or are you going to change your buyer's consultation to kind of do a little bit more educating to your buyers on the shift, or what's the plan?
So I really don't have to change it that much, to be honest with you, because I have real thorough conversations. But yeah, I will kind of talk to them if that's something that, I feel like they have questions about or concern about. But my job is still to just educate them throughout the process on everything. And that's what I do, So they're not gonna go in. Most of the time when I'm doing consultations is going to be a good 25 to 30 minutes at least, because I want to make sure you have a clear understanding of what to expect. And I just make sure that I'm talking to them, finding out where they are. And in some cases, I had to tell people sometimes, and I know y'all may not agree as lenders sometimes, but if they are not ready to buy, then I'm telling them, like, this is not the right time for you to buy. And these are the reasons why it's not a right time. It's not a good time for you to buy. Not that I don't want you to, but I don't want anybody to get in a situation, buy a house, and then they can't keep it. That wouldn't make sense whatsoever,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
So we don't want to do that just to get a commission check. And so we want to make sure that we are properly doing our job too, as real estate professionals and as lenders too. We got to make sure that people understand what it is. Just because they say you can qualify for 400,000, yeah, I want you to buy a $400,000 house. But if I know that you really can't qualify for that $400,000 house, I'm gonna say no. If you don't have enough money left over after you pay your mortgage, then that is not the house for you. It's not the price point. We need to go down. We need to go down to a price point that is going to be comfortable for you. Where are you comfortable at? Just because they told you can have it, that doesn't mean that you need it. Because I can sell you anything, because I'm still gonna get paid. But when it's all said and done, you have to be the one responsible for it, not me. So we got to make sure that you can truly afford to buy this house at this price point. And I believe what happened last year is so many people was like so desperate, and I think that may be some of the stuff that we may see later, because they were bidding over, buying houses that they truly can't afford to keep, because they like, I just got to get it. I got to get it. Even though you said that I can only afford $1,300 now, and then you end up with a $2,000 mortgage payment. Well, you said you can only do 13. What? Where you come up with the difference then? But people were doing that because they were like, no, I got it. And you working 2 jobs, but are you going to continue to work two jobs forever? How long are you going to do that for? Right. So these are just conversations you have to truly have. I had one lady, it was this house that she wanted so bad, and she was going to bid $60,000 over. She was going to pay the $60,000 out of her pocket. And so she was like, we looked at numbers, we looked at everything, and she just asked me, she said, Dionne, I do crazy stuff, and I need you to tell me if you think it's a good idea. And once I looked at everything to her and where she was buying and everything, I didn't think that was a great idea for her to do. I said, for me, I would not do that. I said, because it don't make sense. Look at your numbers. Even though I know that people are overbidding, but you willing to pay $60,000 out of your pocket, you already got to come to the table with 20%, right? And then what? For this house that's like, it looked like a little matchbox. I'm like, no, this is not worth it. And then later she called me and she thanked me. She said, I'm so, and matter of fact, she's a loan officer. She's a loan officer. And she's like, I'm so thankful. Thank you so much for being honest with me, because I would do that. But now that I looked at it, you are right. That wasn't worth me doing.
Right.
And yeah, I could have said, girl, go and do that while I can get my check, but I just like to tell people what I think. Now, what you want me to do, my job is to do what you want me to do. But I'm still going to educate you on what I think, and you have to make the decision on your own. And I'm going to give you the facts. I'm not just going to say, hey, this is what Dionne came up with. These are the facts. So now you got to make a solid decision on what you want to do, And so that, for me, like I said, it's not going to really change up a lot that what I do. And even like my agents that I mentor, I make sure that they do the exact same thing. They're going to totally continue to educate their clients so that they don't have anybody coming back saying, you didn't tell me this, or I didn't know this. And that's what was happening. People were doing that appraisal gap. Come back later, I didn't know I had to pay that. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. We told you. No, I didn't understand that. They were so wanting the house, so they didn't understand. So that's why I said agents was doing it and they didn't understand what it meant. we got to make sure that people understand. I don't know, Jay, were you guys seeing that appraisal gap? in your contract there too. So everybody was doing it. It just
Yeah.
miraculously came out of nowhere because you hadn't seen that for real estate. And then all of a sudden we got these appraisal guys coming out, and all people waiving their due diligence.
Yeah, no inspections, right?
Yes, just everything. And so now, what do you think is going to happen when they notice that, okay, I can't really truly pay that, or this house wasn't worth it? Look at all this stuff happening because I didn't get my inspection done on the house.
Right.
So for us, we had that same market, right? We had people paying 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 over asking price, no appraisal contingencies, no home inspections. But we had a lot of buyers coming down from like DC. So they're coming down with money, they're coming with cash. And so the people that's living here, they're no longer able to live. They work here, they're no longer able to live here. So now they're moving further south or wherever the prices are a little bit lower. So cash is king. So they came down with the cash. But I guess it's depending on the rates too, right? Because if you get that mortgage at 2%, because that was ridiculously low, it might make sense to put up a little extra couple thousand or 1,000 because in the long run it makes sense. So depending on the situation, but we definitely seen it.
Yeah. I just want to add one thing to what Jay said, and Dionne, thank you for that. But one of the things I always hear from buyers in this market, and I know Kevin will probably going to switch up because I start finishing up, but I want to buy, so I'm going to wait to buy when the rate comes down. And as a mortgage advisor, the thing I say is that if you are waiting for a lower interest rate to buy a property, you probably shouldn't be buying a property, because that cannot be your determination. The determination is, do you want to purchase this piece of real estate? Waiting for it to get cheaper or waiting for it to get to a quote unquote more affordable payment really should have your brain thinking about, is this affordable in the first place? Because people have to remember the interest rates that we saw for 24 months were the lowest rates on the history of the planet Earth. Let me say that one more time. They were the lowest rates we've ever seen on the history of the planet Earth to purchase real estate by using a mortgage. That was such a vacuumed event that now people think that that's the standard. When a lot of investors and people that we know that have held real estate for a while, the people that were turning around selling those people the houses at when they made all that equity 2 years ago, guess what interest rates they had? 5%, 4%, 5.5%. So the key decision that they made was not the rate, was that they purchased and they had a long-term play. So that's the main thing we always have to try to just talk to buyers about, is purchasing with a long-term play. If interest rates come down due to quantitative easing or whatever the Feds are doing to help manipulate the market, that's just like the cherry on top of the cake or the cherry on top of the sundae. But the long-term play is still buying and holding real estate for a long period of time as an investor or as your primary residence. And that, based upon what we've seen, has never lost.
So, guys, we're going to wrap this up. I think this was very insightful. What I want to do is go around, and if we can give one piece of advice to a buyer or someone looking to sell that we think will be very helpful to them in this market. Because one thing we didn't touch on is sellers don't know how to move in this market either.
Right.
Because if they purchased 5-10 years ago, the market is totally different. They may not be ready because they brought more cars or took on more credit card debt or leveraged, student loan debt or something like that. So I think that's a great topic to talk about as well, because they don't know how to navigate through this market either. So we'll start with Dionne. What's the piece of advice you would give a buyer that's on the fence looking to buy or to rent right now? What would you tell
them? For me, I would tell them that, weigh your options, get with a professional that can help you to determine if it's a good time for you to buy. And then if it's not necessarily a good time for you to buy, then you need to make an action plan. What happens next? What do you need to do to position yourself so that you can be able to buy? Homeownership is definitely going to be the way you need to go, but we want to make sure that you are ready to make that transition and how to make that transition properly. So that's what I would advise whoever. I mean, if real estate, it's almost like this. If you're a criminal, right, you get into something, you're not going to try to go up there on your own and say, hey, I'm representing myself, right? You have to go out there and get somebody that will represent you. That's their profession. So go and find you a good professional person that's in the business and know what they're talking about, and get represented, and let them walk you through the process. A good real estate agent, a good lender, those two people together can help you go through this real estate market. And that would be my advice to anybody that's watching.
What about you, Jay?
I mean, I'm gonna kind of agree with what Dion said for the most part. It's what's important to you about buying this house. So talk to a consultant, talk to an advisor, so they can ask those thought-provoking questions and really get the picture, to really understand what it is that's important to you, so they can help lead you throughout that process. I feel like real estate is a way to create generational wealth, and it's always a tool to invest in. So I'm always going to advocate for buying real estate. It may not be the right time now, like she said, but let's get you on the plan so you'll be ready to purchase in the next year or two. But when you're purchasing, it's not just about yourself. It's about your children's children. So if you can purchase this home now, this is going to be something that's going to set up your family for generations to come.
What about you, Aaron?
I got a real life situation, so I'm just going to talk about it real quick. I have a client closing tomorrow that was referred to me by a realtor, but when they got into the contract, they had no representation. And the only thing I can advocate is please talk to you got two great realtors here, Dionne in the Georgia market and Jay in the Virginia market, DC, but you got to have representation, because your builder should not represent you. The seller does not have your best interest at hand. The seller's goal is to sell you a house. And so always have representation. They're closing. We didn't have a hiccup, but I see the level, and you guys and Jay and Dionne can attest to this because they're agents. We see it on the financial side, but they're concerns that sometimes the buyers come back to them with the stress, the questions they have. They don't understand title things. The builder's throwing this at me. The seller's throwing this at me, and they don't know who to go to. But the only person naturally these people had in their transaction was to go ask the seller. And the seller's representing the seller. So representation. Talk to your local realtor. If you're in Dion's market, talk to Dionne. If you're in the Fredericksburg, Spotsy, DC, Maryland, Virginia area, talk to Jay. But get some advisory from people that have been in the business for a while and going to represent your best interest. And as always, get pre-approved, go your numbers. Don't do no window shopping.
That's it for him, Aaron?
That's it, man. Come on. That's all I got, man.
That's all you got, man. So my parting shots would be is you got to have some money. Like, even though, Jay just mentioned that you're starting to see sellers paying closing costs, you have to have some money. You have to have money for earnest deposit. You have to have money for home inspection. You have to have money for the appraisal. So that's upfront money. So even if you're in the VA or you're using USDA or down payment assistance program, you still need that money. Yeah. No money down just means no down payment. Doesn't mean no money out of pocket. Right. So just be prepared to have some funds, continue to save, check on 401ks, and just make sure you have some money. If you don't need it because Jay or Dionne was able to work some magic and get the seller pay the closing costs, and Aaron and I can get you, or your lender can get you down payment assistance, that's great. But if that doesn't happen, you're still going to need somewhere to stay. So just continue to save money if you're looking to buy a house, but you don't necessarily have to wait until you have the money to reach out, because Aaron or myself can advise you on what you may need. Dionne and Jay can set your expectations on what you're going to be up against when you're making offers and what you'll need. So have that consultation ahead of time. And the biggest thing is, don't wait until your landlord gives you a 60-day notice to say you sign your lease or you have to move out. That's pressure, and we're not God. So that's the biggest thing. Just be prepared. Prepare ahead of time. If you know you're going to do it a year in advance, it doesn't cost to talk to any of us. Right. Just talk to us. We'll advise you, and then you have a game plan going into it. So
Absolutely.
guys, I appreciate it, man. This was awesome. It didn't seem like we was on here for almost an hour, but I definitely want to do it again. I appreciate you, Jay, Dion, and Aaron. I'm the People's Lender. Have a good night.
Good night.